If you've yet to experience a cyber attack, consider yourself fortunate, or maybe just plain lucky. According to the Sonic Wall Cyber Threat Report, the number of ransomware attacks ballooned by over 105% this year over last year. Last year saw a 61% increase over 2020, and the numbers are going to be even higher next year. And the nature of these attacks is changing too. On top of extortion, attackers last year alone poisoned the water supply in one Florida city. They shut down the largest fuel pipeline in the U.S., disrupting fuel deliveries in 12 states for several days. They've hit hospitals, software companies, and, of course, more than a few trucking companies.
The smaller fleets are even more vulnerable than they might think. And if they can attack, the bad guys can attack a handful of small fleets, they're just going to shut things down and cause panic. That's where they want to go in a lot of cases. The big actors like the Russians.
Experts believe stolen credentials account for more than 60% of all the breaches, compounded by a lack of multi-factor authentication protocols. On this episode of HDT Talks Trucking, we'll speak with the chair of the Technology and Maintenance Council's S5 Cybersecurity Task Force, Mark Zachos. Mark is also the president of DG Technologies based in Farmington, Michigan. Before we speak with Mark, remember to follow and connect with us on social media and subscribe to HDT's YouTube channel so you don't miss another episode of HDT Talks Trucking. I'm Jim Park. We'll be back with Mark right after this.
What drives your decisions? The choices you make can make a big difference for your fleet, and it all starts with what's under the hood. So when everything is riding on you to keep the wheels on the road, turn to the proven protection of SitGuard heavy-duty engine oils. Learn more at sitgolubes.com.
Mark Zachos of DG Technologies. How are you this afternoon, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing great here. Not bad for living in Detroit.
Never gets really good in Detroit, does it?
It's not that bad, but, watch out for those cyber attacks. That's where you got to be careful.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about today, sir. You are an acknowledged expert on the topic. We're going to dig into some of the hows and whys and what fleets can do to protect themselves. But before we go down that road, tell us a little bit about the company, DG Technologies. What are you guys up to?
Sure. Well, we started out in life as business goes. We did and still do vehicle diagnostic tools. So the things that plug into that OBD2 port or the round 9-pin Deutsch connector on your heavy-duty vehicle. We do light, medium, and heavy-duty. And we progressed into the arena of cybersecurity. Why is that? Well, it looks like the hackers and the bad guys have discovered that port on your truck is a very inviting target. So you can plug in and you can get your trouble codes. You can get your guided diagnostic information out of the vehicle. But the bad guys know that, and they can also figure out how to do things like denial of service attack or something like that through that connector. So what we do now at the business is we do secure diagnostics, and that has a lot of opportunities to help customers and help the make things better for the world, I think.
Okay. You're also a fairly active participant at TMC, and you're the task force chairman, I believe, of, is it 537, the task force on cybersecurity?
Well, actually, that's one of the recommended practices that worked on RP 537. Right, yeah. But it's the S5, they call it Working Group S5, and that's the fleet. That's for fleets, management systems. And then under S5, I run the Cybersecurity Task Force. So what we do is, in the back end, on the truck, and diagnostics, telematics, all of the above, we try to look for places to further secure the assets and try to stay ahead of the bad guys.
Okay. Well, we hear about the odd cyber attack. Some are more famous than others. Uh, do you have any idea what the scope of the problem is for the trucking industry? I mean, are we any different from public utilities or pipelines or hospitals that have been victim of previous attacks?
Well, I would say there are some distinctive differences. Transportation, logistics, trucking is part of the critical infrastructure in this country. It's been designated by the Department of Homeland Security. So, I mean, from that sense, you could argue hospitals and other essential service providers are as well. But I think this is, in my view, even more important to protect our logistical assets against cybersecurity attacks. The shutting down, the delivery of fuel to the service stations, shutting down transportations of goods and services. You can't go to the supermarket. You can't gas up your car, and it's going to go downhill very quick from there. So I think that is a very important aspect. And the other thing that I'm sure that you're aware of is we have the big boys, right? We've got the FedEx, UPS, and other big carriers. But in our world, our heavy duty world, most of the carriers are small businesses, right? 20 trucks or under. So because of that, it makes, frankly, a much easier target for attacks. The smaller fleets are even more vulnerable than they might think. And if they can attack, the bad guys can attack a handful of small fleets. They're just going to shut things down and cause panic. That's where they want to go in a lot of cases. The big actors like the Russians, right?
Yeah, I was shocked not long ago when we heard about the Colonial Pipeline and the various hospitals have been victim to this. Those are big organizations. They've probably got resources, people working on this to defend themselves. And you mentioned quite correctly, a large portion of this industry is made up of almost mom and pop companies, 10, 20 trucks. Do they have any idea? Do they know what or how vulnerable they are, or even know what steps to take to protect themselves?
Well, the first answer I would give you, they've heard of cybersecurity and they've got, concerns. Any business owner that I talk to definitely has concerns. It's been in the news for, a few years now, at least. But I also get, why would they go after me? I'm just a little guy, I'm a small fish. But the trouble is, as you just pointed out, there's lots of fish, and the net that the attackers cast are easy to throw into the water. That net is easy to cast. The vulnerabilities that are out there are very easy to get, at least the small guys, hooked on. And then those attackers want, they want money. They want get the ransomware, and you pay me bitcoins or whatever, and maybe they'll give you the data back, but don't count on it.
So that would be representative of a ransomware attack.
Right.
Yeah. Money. That's a root of all evil, right?
Well, money is, but if you take a look at the Department of Defense Cybersecurity Pyramid, they've outlined 3 levels of attacks. There's a lot more details there, but essentially the top of the pyramid is an attacker has billions of dollars, foreign company that or government organization. They call them advanced persistent threats, ATPs. And those attackers, they'll stop at, you can tell that how they approach things. It's a long-term, they're after it for the long term. The Colonial Pipeline attack and then the SolarWinds attack that you heard about more recently, those attackers were in the system for months, if not years, and they're poking around. They're located in Russia or China or some associate, and they've got time, they got the budget, and they're going after something. State secrets could be shut down, carriers to cause our country damage, and they're getting better at it all the time.
Okay, we talked a lot about the little guys. Let's get into the big fish now. Well, this is where it gets kind of interesting and a little scary, frankly, but probably the mom and pops are maybe not vulnerable to these folks, but what do the Russians and Chinese want with a trucking company?
Well, I think that the nature of the threat, and again, those big threat actors are called advanced persistent threat, ATPs. And there's dozens of them that the U.S. government and other agencies have identified. They want to have some method that they can get information out of us, out of a big boy that might also have intelligence value, right? So if you can tell where let's just take an example, right? So the United States is shipping tons of weapons over to Ukraine. Those trucks that pick them up, secure load up at a depot somewhere, they take it to a port, drop them off. Now, honestly, those are very, 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 very well protected. I think the resiliency is known, but the threats change all the time. The landscape changes all the time. There's new things that the bad guys find out. And what they want is intelligence.
A lot of people, I suspect, probably don't wade too deeply into this because A, it's boring. B, it's something that most of us don't understand. And C, it can be expensive.
Yeah.
So if you've got free resources, I'd love you to share those with us.
There's multiple resources, and I'll refer mainly to the U.S. government agencies. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has a Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. And if you go to their website, and there's some links that you can safely click on from there, you can download all sorts of playbooks and all sorts of very valuable materials that your team, small companies and not so small companies, can use as guidance. Simple things make a difference. Simple things make a difference. There's training aids, so you just can't do it once and done. You got to keep a program of training. So how can you have resources available to do that? I got to have the drivers on the road, my shop people. There's only one guy. I don't know, how that all works, but it's important to make this a priority, and it's going to happen to you. It's going to, and if you don't have backups,
it's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Not it might. It's going to.
Right.
You're certain. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Things like passwords. Everybody always emphasizes good, strong passwords, lowercase, uppercase, numbers, symbols, what have you. Most people use password 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not difficult to set a good password, but why don't we do that?
Takes time, takes effort, and we haven't really been exposed to get hit by a particular threat actor who guessed our password. You cannot underestimate the intelligence of these people. I live in Detroit. They know a lot of things about you and the organization and the company. Guessing passwords happens all the time. So I think it's just practice. Here's another tip for, and let's see if I can call it up real quickly. I have my phone here, and I'm going to go to settings. there's a setting on the setting screen. I have an iPhone in front of me. There's a setting called passwords. Okay, I wonder what that is. So let me click on there. And okay, it opens my, okay. And then if you do that, if the people watching do that, security recommendations, no issues found. Whew, that's great. I'll bet you, try it. When we're done, you try it. And this is Apple, Google has the same service. And what happens is that those big companies go out and they look about the web, they scan for compromised passwords. We talked about that at the beginning of our discussion here. The passwords are compromised, they figured it out, they guessed it, or maybe they found a file that has, named password. They get your passwords and they sell them on the web. So right now, you who are watching the show might check this and see somebody knows your passwords and advise you to change them.
Well, I've got a small business here. I'm a writer and like to listen to music and watch a few movies. I've got exposure online. I use an antivirus software. I use a spyware detector, and nothing bad has happened to me yet. So
Great.
Do I assume that my antivirus software and the other stuff is working, or nobody's bothered with me? How do I know this stuff works if nothing ever happens? I'm spending $29 a month for this package of stuff. It's not a lot of money, but should I be? How do I know it's working?
I think that's a great question. Now, you could change your password to something 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and see if you get any hits.
Okay.
That's
won't bother with that one.
exceptional good practice. Now, we really don't know. I think the big boys, the federal government and those with resources that do this for a living, they know how many hits are out there. I think the estimate of internet traffic is over 50% of the internet traffic is spam, botware, and it's just getting worse. So you don't know, I think is a quick answer, but I wouldn't take the risk if I were you. That's excellent practice.
When it comes to ransomware, you suggest obviously backing up all your software, backing up everything all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a live backup. Is that backup not infected with whatever infected your mainframe? Does it not come with the backup?
Yeah. So the answer could be. Now, how long of backups? Do you have backups, weekly backups for a year? Potentially, if you do lose data, if you do get hacked, maybe you have to go back a year or more. Hopefully you've got a backup and say, okay, this is what the experts have determined. This is the time frame when they got into your system. So at least it may not be up to date, and you'll lose a lot of the recent information, but at least you got a starting point.
Is that a common practice?
Backing up, or
backing up from keeping it for like a year?
It should be. And here's another thing that I think would be important to point out is don't assume that your backups are safe. So you might have backup on the cloud that's connected to your current server somehow. So it's common that, and hackers know this, and say, okay, before we hit the go button and bomb this guy for ransomware, let's go back and sort through all of his file structures and see if there is something called backup, or if they do have a backup up in the cloud. And if they can get in there, they'll lock that down too, so you won't be able to get your backup. Yeah. So throw them in jail. I don't know how it's going to go away, but let me give you some good news. I think the good guys are getting better and better and better at it in our defense. So what we need is our community to step up and keep stepping up in the defense of their assets, in the defense of their systems, in the defense of our country, really. So is it no one's ever going to get hit again after, a couple of years of putting in all these firewalls and all the other things that, can prevent this from happening? No, but it's going to get harder and harder and harder for the bad guys. So that pyramid that I made mention to, the kid in his basement who's got a, $10 Bluetooth board or something open source software that they downloaded for free on the web, it's going to at least defeat that type of attacker. So I think that's the good news. And because I pointed out that pyramid, as you go up the pyramid, it takes more and more money, more sophistication. There'll be those bad actors out there still, but at least the low-hanging fruit issues can be mitigated.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mark. That's a pretty enlightening conversation. I guess the big takeaway here is don't take this lightly. Don't take it lightly. It's a pretty serious problem.
Yeah, I can't emphasize that enough. It's and the resiliency, the training, the retraining, assessing yourself, training again. Should be common practice, and encourage your audience to be the best. And if they want some help, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to see what I could do to assist. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for joining us on HDT Talks Trucking. It's been a pleasure. My thanks to Mark Zachos. He's the president of DG Technologies in Farmington, Michigan, and he's the chair of the TMC's S5 Cybersecurity Issues Task Force. Remember to follow and connect with us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future episodes of HDT Talks Trucking. I'm Jim Park. Thanks for watching.